They said it was written by the Dark Ones, bound in flesh, written in blood on paper made from the skin of virgin sacrifices. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis. I can't tell you if that's true. I can tell you that it's the most dangerous book on tape ever read. Just looking at it, you can tell that messing with it will bring nothing but trouble.
Look what I found!
Get upset on the internet, you're assault adult, you're assault adult. Get upset on the internet, you're assault adult. Throwing out a hissy fit, your views ain't in the millions, and every up and comer is a threat to what you're dealing. And instead of getting better, you just spout up on your Facebook, crying on your Twitter bit about how bad your case look. In case you didn't get it yet, allow me to rephrase it. You cry more than my 4-year-old, I'm actually amazed. Like you couldn't even see the forest for the trees. The writing's on the wall, literally there to see. How you getting salted, a culture blowing up, man? I think there was a point where you started growing up, man. Instead of showing up, man, irrationally mad. Don't appropriate impression like the latest fashion fad. It isn't cool or funny to be acting like an edgelord. You alienate friends, pushing closer to the edge more. I don't know how to say it anyway to make it clear. If you're the one unhappy, then the problem's in the mirror. Get upset on the internet, you're assault adult, you're assault adult. Get upset on the internet, you're assault adult. The net is a repository for the vast expanses of human knowledge and all the technological advances, and I can't say enough how you gotta be open-minded. If you're looking for a fight, then you damn well find it. An axe needs grinding, you're not alone. There's a million other nerds who can bitch and moan and groan about how there's a release date delay of the new game. Man, decrease the cliche of your neckbeard. I'm afeared of the intensity of your love for two characters. You claim I've got some chemistry and they belong together. Every other ship is calling you Cortez when you're like...
Hey everybody, welcome to Retro Station 1989. I'm Commander Dan, and this is License to Play, but I'm sure you're wondering why I'm in this hologrammatic pillow fort right now. Anyway, we lost track of Splat, and he apparently stitched together that Necronomicon thing from way back in our Evil Dead evaluation, you know? And, well, last time it didn't go great for anybody. Well, take a look. Man, it's too dang spooky in here. And then, look at this. It's like the station is projecting a way scarier interior than I'd like. Now, I'm no weak-hearted dingleberry, folks, that's for sure, but come on, this is scary stuff. There's pumpkins. You see that? And I'm not particularly curious to know what the Necronomicon will chop off this time. Margot is using most of her cycles to help the ship's video scutters locate the little spud, and I hope we can eventually talk the little guy down if the little witch hasn't finished his crafts, which crafts? Witchcrafts. Oh, I get it. Okay, it's the year 1985. And folks, it's one of the best years of my life. We'd just returned from living abroad on a military base in Germany, where there was no commercial television, very few movies, and, well, it wasn't the best time. But we returned to America, and it was like all of pop culture and commercial television and movies were available again, all at once. But while this was a bright, neon, and goofy time to be a kid, I was 10, and it was like a torrent of pop culture, like somebody had opened a fire hydrant of pop culture right into our faces. I do need to bring things down a little bit. We're going to have to start this evaluation with an important statement that YouTube would like us to make if we want humans to actually see our videos, because the algorithm wants us to all be advertiser friendly, and because, well, we want humans to see this video, especially you on planet Earth. So, let me just say, warning, nothing that you see as examples of the themes around our subject today are authentic or real. They are simulated acts of supernatural and physical violence or horror performed by actors and professional stuntmen. In short, it's all special effects, idiots. Duh. The last part I added for everyone who hates messages like that, but I ought to warn folks that there may be some content here that's a little more intense than my normal evaluations based around the horror subject matter. But our specific subject matter today is Italian horror. Specifically, the Italian horror of Dario Argento. If you're a horror fan, and I very much am, as you'll definitely know that already, you'll know there's a difference between American scary movies and American horror flicks, and then the Italian horror cinema. Like there's a difference between bottled water, soda pop, and moonshine. Don't get me wrong, American horror movies are great, entertaining, and scary, but we have to talk a little bit about Italian horror's differences from what the average American or European even might be expecting or already inured to as far as content goes. Called giallo horror, this is like someone somehow mixing a luxury cocktail using only seltzer, an olive, a half-full can of PBR, and maraschino cherries, but here's the thing, it's delicious. The ingredients, of course, are low class, but the artistry on show is unparalleled. And one of the primary artisans in that milieu is Dario Argento. Here are a few folks commenting on the movie that contains the 24th scariest movie moment, according to Bravo. The movie? Suspiria.
Roses are red, violets are blue, but the iris is the flower that will mean the end of it.
It's a film which doesn't want to follow any rules.
You could very well say it was, in some ways, the first punk horror movie.
It's like Douglas Sirk on an acid trip.
The game we're playing today for the Super Nintendo is by one of my all-time favorite video game publishers, and it's also a design house in Japan, Human Entertainment, the original designers and publishers of the niche but classic Fire Pro Wrestling series, which is still running today under the Spike JP banner, makers of a lot of anime licensed titles, and that title is called Fire Pro Wrestling World, and we may talk about that someday. Even though it's technically not a licensed title, you'll understand why when we talk about it. And some of the most unique experiences in America on the Super Nintendo were created by the Human development team as well. First, though, we're going to talk about the inspirations behind the game. Phenomena, also known as Creepers, and Suspiria, also known as the one with the creepiest trailer known to horror fans in 80s on video. Okay, the director of these two films, Dario Argento, made a career out of directing eerie, off-putting, sense-shattering horror and macabre flicks that were like splatterpunk fever dreams, but starring sweet-faced Hollywood ingenues like Jessica Harper, or, in this case, in her first movie debut, Jennifer Connelly, who you might know from Labyrinth, or one of my favorite movies she starred in the 90s, Career Opportunities, because... Well, yes, Cambot Jr., but also for many other reasons, like... Okay, yeah, we get it. Jeez, Cambot, enough, alright? Anyway, her career started with a strange Italian horror flick by Dario Argento called Phenomena. Jennifer plays Jennifer Corvino, a psychic and telepathic young woman who's attending a weird-ass boarding school for the kids of wealthy patrons, where the headmistress is either a witch, or a secret Nazi, or a secret witch Nazi. I mean, it's Argento, so it's really anyone's guess, but my money is on semi-pro secret witch Nazi. Because a lady running the Richard Wagner boarding school for innocent victims, I mean young women, is named Frau Bruckner. And she looks like this. Yeah, she looks like Arnold Tote's sister from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Arnold Tote, no Nazi, and another melty-faced antagonist like Frau Bruckner. Why does that always happen when I say her name?
Luca!
Anyway, the story of Phenomena is a hyper-gory murder mystery with a dash of psychic and telepathic content, and was inspired by a true crime article Dario Argento read about how maggots at a crime scene helped French authorities identify a murderer. There are 3 things in this movie that will thrill you.
Thrill me.
1. Donald Pleasance is in it playing a disabled forensic entomologist, Professor John McGregor, in a brilliant mentor-style turn. 2. Inga the Chimp, who is a signing and helpful chimp that performs as Don's nurse. And, well, the avenging angel of justice at the end of this movie, which has to be seen to be believed. And 3, the score. It's by a dozen or so late 70s and 80s metal, punk, and new wave artists, including this one. Cambot Jr., that's Danny Sexbang from Ninja Sex Party. The person I told you to find footage of was Andy Sexgang, the punk rocker. Never mind. The other bands featured in this flick are metal's godfathers, Motorhead, horror movie icons Goblin, and Iron Maiden. This soundtrack and score are pure metal radness. And so the story revolves around Jennifer Corvino, in-story daughter of famous actor Paul Corvino, and is a psychic girl with the ability to communicate with animals, specifically insects. She's been sent to the Richard Wagner School for Girls to be out of her father and his agent's way while he shoots his new movie. Apparently, Paul Corvino is a really hot, studly, leading man type, like Chris Pratt, you know? But less like Mario and more like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Chris Pratt with his shirt off, that kind of deal. Anyway. Jennifer has the ability to communicate with insects and animals and control their behavior with her mind by asking them favors. A fact that gets her labeled as diabolic by the staff of the girls' school, ultimately. But maybe that's because she puts a swarm of deadly flies on the school and mosquitoes. Alright, so shortly after arriving, Jennifer, a somnambulist, which is a fancy word for sleepwalker, ew. We'll talk about that one day, I think. Ew. Sleepwalker, ew. Well, she leaves the school and finds herself witnessing the film's killer claiming their latest victim. Ultimately, she wakes up in the car of a pair of German kids, and then she jumps out and passes out in the bushes. When she finally wakes in the custody of the school, she's put through her paces by the definitely not Nazi Frau Bruckner. Why does that always happen? Anyway, and her gang of not Nazis as well, in the school's medical department, in which they put her in a machine that is definitely not a World War II era torture device. No. This is medical, I'm sure of it. The movie continues with Jennifer's roommate being killed by the movie's villain, who turns out to be the deformed son of Frau Bruckner, and a firefly leads her to the glove of another victim, and ultimately she follows the insect's messages to the killer's lair, where his mother has prepared for him a pool of dead bodies and maggots to be, quote-unquote, friends with. Here is a picture of Jennifer Connelly covered in maggots. They're not real, it's rice, and that's probably gravy. I don't know that it is, though. Dario Argento is a bit crazy. The climax of this movie has to be seen to be believed, but let me tell you, as a fan of this week's game, I had not seen Phenomena until very recently, and the parallels are insane. Don't worry, we'll go over that in the making of section of the game, but this was definitely one of the major influences on this week's game creator. So, Cambot Jr., have the Scudders found Splat yet? Every second that little weirdo is alone with that shredded Necronomicon, the more terrified I get of the consequences, you know what I mean?
We have located something we think might be Splat in the refuse trenches on the primary ring. We can get visual shortly. It's taking Margot all of her processing power to break through. Whatever interference he's been able to create, it's pretty strong.
The little maniac has been prying buttons off the databanks for weeks now. Add to that a hologram representation of the Mad Arab's Book of the Deadites. Who knows what bullcrap he's created to block signals?
Well, it's not magic, boss. We know that much. Last time we proved that the chainsaw hand beats magic every time.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Okay. Hey, Necronomicrotch!
Hey, no need to be so aggro, bro.
That's what you think. You know, I've learned a couple things by being a Deadhead fan of the greatest horror ever and the greatest kicker of evil asses in the history of film since Audie Murphy. Mr. Ash Williams. 1, the only way evil wins is if good people do nothing. And 2, well, the best defense is good offense. And 3, the best offense is a chainsaw for a hand.
What the fuck?
Hail the king, baby!
Oh no. Oh, I'm dead.
We sure did. Anyway, let's move on to the production of our title today, Clock Tower. and talk about the amazing studio that put the game together, Human Entertainment. Human Entertainment was a Japanese video game development company from 1983 to 2000. It was founded by former Taito employee and industry veteran Takashi Ito. Human Entertainment became known for its diverse and unique array of video game software, though they're primarily known for the Fire Pro series. Human Entertainment started in '83, initially focusing on creating games for home computers like the MSX and the PC-88. During this period, the company developed titles such as Fire Pro Wrestling and Formation Soccer, two very good representations of the types of sport that focused on a level of attention to detail that weren't in other games of its type. Now, while I'm not a fan of footy, I am a lifelong fan of pro wrestling. And Ito's hiring of Masato Masuda to develop his Fire Pro Wrestling Combination Tag and Fire Pro series was a masterstroke of genius, in my opinion. Because Masuda designed the NES's Pro Wrestling, which, next to Mat Mania, also by Taito, was just a near-perfect wrestling game for the time. So, you've got all of this genius behind it, and Human continued creating unique games in the 80s. And one of my favorites, Monster Party, of course, and made a name for themselves creating unique twists on popular genres in the 16-bit era, like SOS, a game that mixes Prince of Persia and the Poseidon Adventure, and the overhead action run-and-gun mix with fire and rescue teams called the Firemen. Now, while the latter wasn't released in the US, the former was released here to critical acclaim, but not a lot of purchases made because their advertising budget wasn't much. I mean, they were making artistic leaps and bounds, but they just never found financial success out of that. Despite critical success for their games, Human unfortunately went out of business in the year 2000, but not before creating Clock Tower, The First Fear. That's this game right here. Well, not exactly this game. This is a repro card I got at the Midwest Gaming Classic when I traded in all my Amico games. All my Amico physical products, let's say. But this game, Clock Tower, The First Fear, was created as an homage to the films of Dario Argento.
Commander, I've got a lock on the refuse trench container Splat's got himself in. We'll have him on camera shortly.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, hopefully, while you folks watch this, we can stop Splat from doing something horribly stupid. Clock Tower, The First Fear, is a survival horror point-and-click adventure game developed by Human Entertainment. It was initially released for the Super Famicom, the Japanese version of the Super Nintendo, in 1995. The game follows protagonist Jennifer Simpson as she explores the supernatural shenanigans in the mansion of her new adopted family, all the while trying to escape from a relentless, stunted, and deformed scissor-wielding antagonist named Scissorman. Clock Tower: The First Fear is the foundation for the Clock Tower series and franchise, and left a lasting impact on the horror gaming genre. While it didn't see an official release outside of Japan at the time, it gained a cult following, especially among that segment of the Venn diagram between horror fans and video game fans called super nerds, like yours truly. The game was designed by Hifumi Kono, whose other titles include Terror of the Stratus for the PSP, and some of my buddies, Guys Games and Beer, who donated the Tritium Quad-Lithium chassis for Cambot Jr.'s external body. They run huge LAN parties of Kono's Xbox Classic Steel Battalion and Steel Battalion Line of Contact. If they come to your town, check them out. Check for them at Midwest Gaming Classic in Milwaukee, along with myself, or at GameholeCon in Madison, Wisconsin. And me, as well. The game did reasonably well, and spawned 3 sequels: Clock Tower 2, Clock Tower Ghost Head, and Clock Tower 3. Now, while Clock Tower: The First Fear and Clock Tower 2 both feature Scissorman and Jennifer, the second game of the PlayStation revolves more around a slasher film aesthetic, having Jennifer or her adoptive mother Helen, an assistant professor of criminal psychology, and Hifumi Kono wasn't necessarily interested in creating a sequel at first, but when he saw the possibilities with the power of the PlayStation, agreed to create a new game. And while it was a contemporary of Resident Evil, Clock Tower, for PlayStation, it was a point-and-click style of game, and the slow nature of that adventure game mold kind of left it behind the Capcom Classic in the dust. However, take a look at these graphics. The game is good, and it's a good time if you like adventure games, but the puzzles have that Moon Logic point-and-click, and it's not action-filled. So other than the Scissorman's violence, the game's not really a Giallo-style story. Not like the first one.
We've got Splat on comms now.
Great. Splat, you've got to stop doing whatever it is you're doing. You're going to destroy the station.
What? What am I doing?
He doesn't even know what he's doing in a literal sense. Hey, you're stitching that thing back together? It's gonna bring it to life.
What's wrong with that? I would love this book to come to life.
No, don't. What?
See? What do you got against Hello Kitty?
Hello, Kitty? You mean you're not putting the Necronomicon back together?
How would I do that, Commander Dan? The Necronomicon was a hologram, remember?
Wait. Yeah, it was. Margot.
Yes, Commander?
What have I been afraid of here?
Are you afraid, Commander?
Of course! I'm terrified! I'm pants-wettingly scared!
Mission accomplished. 2 years in a row. Happy Halloween, Commander.
Oh, what the fuck?
I told you I was funny.
Down to brass tacks. Clock Tower, well, this game is one of the most impressive feats of squeezing all of the power and ability out of the SNES and how a game is put together. It's a single-player point-and-click adventure, and the player takes control of Jennifer, who's trapped in a weird manor house, where she and some other girls have been adopted, and suddenly the lights go out and the other girls are missing, and Jennifer is stuck in a surreal nightmare. Now, the first time I heard about the series, it was Clock Tower 2, Clock Tower in America, and when I heard of The First Fear, I thought it would be more closely related to Suspiria, a story where ballerinas were unknowingly attending a dance school run by a coven of witches. The First Fear is more like Phenomena, truth be told. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of Clock Tower, The First Fear. The good, nearly everything, folks. Let's take a listen to the music. This strange melody that forms the backbone of the game's theme is used when something supernatural or horrific is about to happen. And it's just eerie. And when the Scissor Man bursts from wherever he's hiding at the moment, you will learn to dread hearing that noise, and you will jump damn near every time waiting for that noise. The graphics are also on the good side. Comparing Clock Tower to things like it on the SNES is kind of impossible. There's no point-and-click game like it on the SNES. However, let's take a look at some cinematic actioners like SOS, also by Human, and especially Nosferatu, which leverages a lot of the Super Nintendo's ability to process color and texture to create believable and horrifying backgrounds. Clock Tower's character portraits are great, and if you told me Human just digitized a photo of Jennifer Connelly to represent the lead character, I would have believed it. But it's actually a photo of a woman who worked with Human and was dressed in the costumes of the protagonist, who happened to look a lot like Jennifer Corvino in the Phenomena movie, so the effect is striking. And the game was designed about a classic haunted house aesthetic with a three-dimensional model of the setting used to create the backgrounds. Overall, the graphics for the simple things set up the graphics for things like this horrifying dude. I don't think I appreciate them calling the dude a big fat blob, though. That's kind of mean to big fat blobs, like myself. Anyway, sound and graphics are top notch, and the control is set up to be point and click. And trust me, translating the game's controls to an SNES controller is a measure of innovation and elegance that Human, well, they're known for in their other games, and it's not surprising, but it is impressive. This game has 9 endings with lettered codes, and your actions throughout the game determine which ending you get. There's an S ending that's hard to achieve, and unfortunately isn't canon to the rest of the series, but most players should be able to get through the main story, completing all objectives for one of the good endings in around 3 hours, once you know what you're doing. And let me tell you, there aren't many ugly things about this game at all. None, in fact. But the one bad thing, well, we'll go into that, but it's going to be resolved next year. The bad is that the game is an import, and it's in Japanese. And if you want to play it in English, you'll need a system that can both play Super Famicom games and add translation patches. I happen to, the Retron 5, but not to mention, just the cart by itself costs $80 or so in US dollars. Now, sealed copies go for hundreds of dollars on the market, but sealed games are stupid as hell. This is scientific fact, confirmed by Planet X Master Computech Lords. I have printouts of this. It says right here, listen, it says, let me read it. Sealed games are stupid as hell. I mean, look at that. X equals stupid as hell. Anyway, I didn't say the bad was bad for long, right? I did mention that it was going to be taken care of next year. As a matter of fact, Limited Run, Sunsoft, and Capcom, now if that's not a team, I don't know what is, are going to be re-releasing Clock Tower for American audiences in 2024 across the board on Steam, all the consoles, including the Switch, which is going to be my preference, and they'll have hard copies as well as digital. And while you may be paying retail for the game, you'll be getting a complete copy if you buy it in the solid form and not giving crummy scalpers the time of day or a penny of your hard-earned money. So wait. Just wait. In the meantime, you can think about it like I did when I just heard about the game and tantalize over jump scares, horror content on a Super Nintendo. Sometime in early 2024, you can play the remastered edition, and believe me, it's worth your time and money. And just, if you don't believe me, check this jump scare out as Scissorman pulls a Suspiria on a friend of Jennifer's. Right? That leaves only one question, of course. Does Clock Tower, the first Fear, have a license to play? Yeah. Not to mention, you're getting a chance to play it next year, which I'll possibly be able to have a normal dang Halloween for once, hopefully next year. But in the meantime, like and subscribe and all that if you want to see more of these. And I appreciate everyone watching. This has been a spooky, spooky season, but we're coming up on the greatest season of all, aren't we, folks? I got one more episode before that happens, but stay tuned for our Christmas special coming up shortly. And don't forget to check out Clock Tower next year when it comes out, or find yourself a repro copy. This one here was like $40, I think. Now, you can find one without the box and all the folderol. I just wanted to trade my Amico physical products in for something that was worth a damn. And I did. Anyway, more than anything I've said during this broadcast, or have said in the past, or will say in the future, remember to always, always, always stay retro. Peace.
Get upset on the internet. You're a salt adult. You're a salt